Air travel is a modern miracle, yet the moment we step onto a plane, we surrender our dignity to some of the most illogical, bizarre, and downright hilarious regulations ever conceived by corporate lawyers. Today, we are exposing the absolute dumbest rules airlines force you to follow. You will never look at boarding passes the same way again. 1. You must keep your window shade perfectly open during takeoff and landing. The official reasoning is that flight attendants need to see outside in case of an emergency, which sounds completely logical until you realize they are usually strapped into jump seats facing a blank wall. Meanwhile, you are blinded by the morning sun while trying to ignore the terrifying rattling noise coming from the left engine. Does anyone really believe a passenger staring out the window is the primary defense system for a multi-million-dollar aircraft? 2. There is a brutal 90-day rule for lost luggage that most people don't realize exists. If an airline cannot reunite you with your bag within 3 months, they legally wash their hands of it and sell the entire suitcase, unopened, to a massive store in Alabama called the Unclaimed Baggage Center. Your lost wedding dress, your expensive laptop, or even your weird collection of souvenir spoons is put on a shelf and sold to total strangers at a discount. The airline literally turns your misfortune into a liquidated asset once the clock runs out. 3. Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport famously implemented a rule for men's restrooms that saved them millions in cleaning costs. They etched a tiny, realistic image of a black fly into the porcelain of every urinal. Research showed that men instinctively aim for the fly, reducing spillage by 80%. It is a brilliant piece of psychological engineering disguised as a toilet decoration. The airport literally gamed human nature to keep their floors dry. Is it genius or just a slightly insulting commentary on the male psyche? 4. Switching your phone to airplane mode is entirely non-negotiable. For decades, we were led to believe that a rogue text message could send a commercial jet spiraling out of the sky. Aviation experts have openly admitted that modern aircraft navigation systems are heavily shielded and completely immune to consumer electronics. Yet, airlines still enforce this rule with an iron fist. Honestly, are they just worried that someone making a loud phone call during the flight will annoy the rest of the cabin into a mutiny? 5. If your checked suitcase weighs 51 pounds instead of the sacred 50, you suddenly owe the airline a small fortune. But here is the truly ridiculous loophole they perfectly accept. To avoid the massive fee, you can just open your luggage right there on the dirty airport floor, pull out 3 heavy sweaters and wear them all at once. The airplane is carrying the exact same amount of weight. The aircraft does not care if the extra pound is in the cargo hold or sweating profusely in seat 14B. 6. Japan's silent airport rule at places like Narita and Haneda is a masterpiece of social engineering. They have drastically reduced or eliminated loud overhead announcements for boarding and final calls to create a zen-like atmosphere. This forces passengers to be personally responsible for checking monitors and staying alert. It prevents the constant audio pollution found in Western terminals. But it also means if you fall asleep at the gate, the airline will let you miss your flight in total, peaceful silence. 7. You are strictly forbidden from drinking your own alcohol on the plane. You can buy a ridiculously overpriced mini bottle of vodka at the terminal, and you can legally bring it onto the aircraft, but the moment you try to pour it yourself, you are violating regulations. The flight attendants must be the ones to serve it. It is a brilliant corporate monopoly disguised as a safety protocol. Why exactly does a beverage become extremely dangerous just because a corporate employee did not hand it to you? 8. When Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi airport was built, the government was so convinced the site was haunted by ancient spirits that they forced the airport authority to build 99 separate spirit houses around the perimeter. Even after the official opening, they held a massive exorcism ceremony led by 99 monks to clear bad energy that was supposedly causing technical glitches and accidents. To this day, the staff follows strict protocols for leaving offerings to these spirits. Do you think ancient ghosts can actually mess with a modern flight computer? 9. Paro Airport in Bhutan is so dangerous that fewer than 30 pilots in the entire world are legally certified to land there. The runway is tucked into a deep valley surrounded by 18,000-foot Himalayan peaks, meaning pilots have to navigate sharp turns manually without any radar assistance. They literally have to see the runway with their own eyes to land, and flights are only permitted during daylight hours with perfect visibility. It is the most exclusive club in aviation, where one wrong tilt of the wing means a mountainside for breakfast. 10. The overhead bins must be slammed shut with the force of a thunderclap before the plane can move an inch. Passengers are constantly scolded for placing items incorrectly. Yet the standard airline solution is to have a flight attendant violently shove everyone's delicate belongings until the latch finally clicks. You spend an hour carefully packing your fragile laptop, only to watch it get compressed by a stranger's oversized duffel bag and a crew member's sheer willpower. The definition of carry-on safety is highly subjective. 11. In certain high-security airports like those in Nigeria or various military-heavy regions, taking a simple selfie with your plane can lead to an immediate interrogation or your phone being confiscated. The logic is that you might be documenting sensitive infrastructure, even though the exact same view is visible on Google Earth to anyone with a Wi-Fi connection. It is the ultimate exercise in security theater where a tourist's vacation photo is treated like a top-secret intelligence report. If everyone has a camera in their pocket, is a photography ban in a public terminal even remotely enforceable in the 21st century? 12. Airlines have a bizarre, legally enforced hatred for something called skip lagging. This is when you book a flight from New York to London with a layover in Paris, but you simply get off in Paris because it was cheaper than a direct flight. If the airline catches you doing this, they might ban you for life or sue you for the lost revenue. It is the only industry where you pay for a service, choose to use less of it, and then get punished for being efficient. Since you already paid for the seat, why does the airline care if your physical body stays in it for the second half? 13. The 100 milliliter liquid rule is perhaps the most famous piece of modern aviation absurdity. Security will confidently confiscate your 101 milliliter bottle of expensive shampoo, declaring it a major threat, but they will happily let you pass if you have 10 separate 100 milliliter bottles of the exact same liquid. The math of safety suggests that small amounts of danger are perfectly fine as long as they are stored in tiny plastic containers. It is a massive inconvenience that has done more to boost the sales of travel-sized toiletries than it has to actually improve global security. 14. If you have a minor typo on your plane ticket, like John instead of John, many airlines will demand a name change fee that can cost upwards of $200. They claim this is for security and administrative work, but in reality, it takes a computer about 3 milliseconds to update a single character in a database. It is essentially a high-stakes spelling bee where the prize is not losing your entire vacation budget. Have you ever felt like the airline is just waiting for you to make a mistake so they can hit you with a specialized, invisible tax? 15. Low-cost carriers have turned the simple act of printing a piece of paper into a luxury service. If you arrive at the airport without having checked in online and printed your own boarding pass, some airlines will charge you nearly $60 to print it at the desk. This piece of paper costs the airline less than a cent, yet they charge more than the price of a decent steak for it. It is a blatant, lazy tax designed to catch unsuspecting travelers off guard and squeeze every last drop of profit out of a person who just wants to get home. 16. There is a frustrating rule called no weight pooling. If you and your partner are traveling together with 2 bags, and one is 21 kilograms while the other is 19, you will be forced to pay an overweight fee for the first bag, even though your total combined weight is perfectly within the limit. The airline will literally make you open your suitcases on the floor and move a pair of jeans from one bag to the other to satisfy the scale. It serves no aerodynamic purpose. It is simply a bureaucratic hurdle designed to make your life more difficult for absolutely no logical reason. 17. Many airports have implemented hostile architecture in their seating areas to ensure you never get too comfortable. If you see benches with fixed armrests every 20 inches, that is not a design choice for your comfort. It is a rule enforced by the airport to prevent you from lying down and sleeping during a long layover. They want you awake, bored, and walking through the duty-free shops spending money. It is a subtle way of telling you that, unless you are actively consuming products, your physical presence in the terminal is barely tolerated. 18. Australia's honey ban is a biosecurity rule that is enforced with extreme prejudice at domestic airport terminals. If you try to fly from Sydney to Western Australia with a tiny jar of local honey, you can be hit with a fine of over $2,000. The government is protecting their local bee population from specific mites and diseases, and they treat a jar of honey like a shipment of radioactive waste. Security will literally hunt you down for a souvenir spread that you bought at a local farmer's market. 19. Airlines have an incredibly strict sequential use rule for tickets. If you have a multi-city trip and miss the very first flight, the airline system will automatically cancel every single subsequent flight on your itinerary without a refund. Even if you manage to get to the second city on your own, your ticket for the flight home is now completely worthless. The airline already has your money, and now they can sell your seat again to someone else. It is a legalized double dip that leaves the passenger stranded and broke for the crime of being late once. 20. If you find yourself at Sunan International Airport in North Korea, there is a terrifyingly strict rule regarding reading material. You are legally forbidden from folding or creasing any newspaper or magazine that features a photograph of the supreme leader. If you accidentally tuck a newspaper into your seat back pocket and fold his face in half, you could face immediate detention and a very long conversation with state security. It is the only place where a simple piece of paper is treated with more gravity than your actual passport. 21. In some small island nations like Samoa, certain airlines have implemented a pay-by-weight rule that is as brutally honest as it is controversial. Instead of a flat ticket price, they weigh you and your luggage together on a giant scale at the check-in counter. You are literally charged by the pound, much like a shipment of Alaskan salmon. It turns the airport lobby into a public health clinic where your lunch choices have a direct impact on your bank account. If every airline started charging by the pound for passengers, would you finally hit the gym? Or would you just accept that your love for deep dish pizza now comes with a fuel surcharge? 22. Step into any airport in Thailand, and you'll see signs featuring a fruit with a giant red X through it. That is the durian, a delicacy that smells like a combination of rotting onions and gym socks. It is strictly banned from terminals and cabins because its scent is so powerful and pervasive that it can linger in the aircraft's upholstery for weeks. One forgotten snack in your carry-on could literally ground a multi-million-dollar jet for a professional deep cleaning. Is a fruit that smells like a biohazard really worth the risk of being banned from an entire airline? 23. In Japanese aviation culture, the ground crew follows a strict, legally mandated farewell protocol that you won't find anywhere else. After the pushback is complete, the entire team of mechanics and baggage handlers stands in a perfectly straight line and bows deeply to the departing aircraft as it begins to taxi. It is a formal sign of respect and a guarantee that they have personally checked every bolt on that plane. If you are sitting on the right side of the aircraft, you get a final silent moment of Japanese hospitality that makes a standard thumbs up from a Western ground crew look downright lazy. 24. Frankfurt Airport in Germany has a night flight ban that is so strictly enforced it feels like a high school curfew. No planes are allowed to land or take off between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. to ensure the neighbors get their beauty sleep. If a pilot is running just 5 minutes late due to wind, they aren't allowed to land. They have to divert the entire plane to a different city hundreds of miles away. Imagine being 5 miles from your house but ending up in a hotel in another state because the airport went to sleep. Does the right to a quiet night really outweigh the sanity of 300 stranded passengers? 25. Traveling to Dubai with a standard sinus headache? You better check your labels very carefully. The UAE has incredibly strict rules regarding controlled medications, and substances like codeine, found in common over-the-counter painkillers in many countries, can lead to immediate arrest and years of prison time. They don't care if you have a medical necessity. If you don't have the specific, notarized paperwork, you are treated like a high-level smuggler. 26. If you are traveling with the cremated remains of a loved one, the TSA has a very specific, heartless rule. They are never allowed to open the urn, but if the container is made of lead or any material that their X-ray cannot see through, the remains are strictly banned from the flight. They will not take your word for it, and they will not peek inside. If the urn is too opaque, your loved one is staying at security. It is a cold, bureaucratic reality for families during their most difficult moments. 27. In Kenya and Tanzania, having a simple plastic carrier bag in your luggage can lead to a massive fine or even a jail sentence. They have some of the world's strictest bans on single-use plastics to protect their local environment and wildlife. Even the duty-free bags from your departing airport are technically illegal the moment you step off the plane. Security might literally rip the plastic wrapping off your new perfume right at the gate. It's a noble environmental cause, but seeing a confused tourist get interrogated over a grocery bag is the definition of airport absurdity. 28. Israel's Ben Gurion Airport has a security rule that isn't about what's in your bag, but what's in your mind. Every passenger undergoes a mandatory, intense psychological interview before they even reach the check-in desk. Security agents might ask you the same question 5 different ways just to see if your pupils dilate, or if your voice has a slight tremor. It is widely considered the most effective security in the world, but it makes every innocent traveler feel like a character in a spy thriller who just forgot their secret code word. 29. Gibraltar International Airport is the only place on Earth where a major 4-lane highway crosses directly through the middle of the active runway. When a plane needs to land, traffic lights turn red and barriers drop, stopping cars and pedestrians just like a railroad crossing. It is a terrifyingly casual intersection of high-speed aviation and morning commutes. If a pilot misses the touchdown point, they aren't just hitting asphalt. They are plowing through a local bus route. It is the ultimate test of faith in a simple red light. 30. For a long time, the Manila airport in the Philippines was plagued by the laglag-bala, or bullet planting rule. Regulations were so strict that if a single bullet was found in your bag, even as a harmless souvenir, you were immediately detained and faced criminal charges. Corrupt officials were allegedly dropping bullets into tourists' bags just to extort fines. It got so bad that passengers started wrapping their entire suitcases in thick layers of plastic wrap just to prevent anyone from adding items to their luggage. 31. Gisborne Airport in New Zealand features one of the most stressful rules for air traffic controllers. They have to coordinate with a regional train schedule. A functional railway line cuts directly across the main runway. If a steam train is chugging through, the planes simply have to wait in the sky until the tracks are clear. It is a bizarre, low-tech collision of 19th-century rail and modern flight. 32. Aalborg Airport in Denmark officially regulates your emotions with a 3-minute kiss rule. In the drop-off zone, there are signs that strictly prohibit farewell embraces from lasting longer than 180 seconds. It is a functional regulation designed to prevent sentimental gridlock and keep traffic flowing. If you need a longer goodbye, you are legally required to move to the parking lot and pay for the privilege. How much is a 4th minute of affection worth in Danish currency? 33. Indian airports enforce a strict ban on carrying whole, uncracked coconuts in any luggage. Aviation authorities categorize them as a Class 4 flammable solid because the dried meat inside, known as copra, is highly combustible and prone to spontaneous heating. Furthermore, the thick shell makes it nearly impossible for X-ray machines to see if anything has been hidden inside. This turns a simple tropical souvenir into a high-level security threat. Would you ever think of a fruit as a dangerous combustible before seeing the warning signs? 34. Saudi Arabian airports operate with an absolute zero-tolerance policy for alcohol that extends directly into your bloodstream. If you land in the kingdom and security suspects you had a drink on the flight, or even hours before boarding, you can be detained, fined, or worse. They do not just scan your bags, they are effectively scanning your biology for non-compliance with local law. It is the world's most intense, dry airport experience where a single, celebratory glass of wine during a layover can lead to a legal catastrophe. 35. Chinese airport security follows a ruthless, zero-mercy rule regarding power banks and portable chargers. If the technical specifications, specifically the watt-hour rating, are faded, scratched, or missing from the label, the device is immediately confiscated and destroyed. Even a brand-new expensive battery is considered hazardous waste if the text isn't perfectly legible for the inspector's clipboard. Thousands of dollars worth of perfectly functional electronics are trashed every day simply because of minor ink wear and tear. 36. On small island commuter flights in the Maldives or the Caribbean, your seat selection is a complete lie. Pilots and ground crew enforce weight and balance regulations that allow them to move you to a specific seat based on your body mass. They need to ensure the aircraft's center of gravity is perfect for takeoff, effectively turning the passengers into human counterweights. It is a public and often embarrassing process where your physical weight determines exactly where you are allowed to sit for the duration of the flight. 37. German airports have a very strict interpretation of privacy laws that can land a tourist in serious trouble. Taking a photo or video that happens to include a federal police officer or a security agent in the background is often treated as a criminal offense. Security personnel have the legal authority to seize your phone, delete your footage, and issue a fine on the spot. While filming security is common for accountability in other countries, doing so in Frankfurt or Munich will likely result in a very fast trip to a windowless interrogation room. 38. Do not even think about bringing an electronic cigarette into a Thai airport. While they are common worldwide, vapes are strictly illegal in Thailand, and airport security is the front line for this ban. Tourists have been arrested, extorted for thousands of dollars, and even face the threat of long-term imprisonment just for having a vape pen in their carry-on. The law is so severe that security treats a small nicotine device with the same level of gravity as a weapon. Is a quick hit of nicotine worth the risk of a decade in a foreign jail cell? 39. The TSA in the United States maintains a bizarrely specific hierarchy of danger when it comes to hobby supplies. You are legally allowed to board a plane with long, sharp, pointed metal knitting needles, yet you may have a 3-inch plastic toy or a small hobbyist screwdriver confiscated for being a threat. The regulation implies that a person is harmless with 10 inches of pointed steel, but becomes a dangerous mastermind with a set of basic tools. It is a logic-defying rule that only makes sense within the walls of a government bureaucracy. 40. Vietnamese airports have a legally backed absolute ban on nuoc mam, the traditional fermented fish sauce, in hand luggage. The odor is so powerful and persistent that if a bottle leaks, the scent will penetrate the aircraft's upholstery and ventilation system, potentially grounding the plane for a professional deep clean. Most airlines have had to replace entire sections of cabin carpet because of one broken bottle. It is the only condiment on the planet treated with the same level of caution and fear as a gallon of hazardous chemicals. 41. When a Boeing 757 operated by Nepal Airlines suffered a persistent technical glitch, the company didn't just rely on senior engineers. They followed a spiritual protocol and sacrificed 2 goats on the tarmac. This was an official, documented mechanical fix intended to appease Akash Bhairab, the Hindu god of sky protection. Surprisingly, the plane flew perfectly to Hong Kong immediately after the ritual. It is one of the only times in modern history where a blood sacrifice was listed as a legitimate step in an aircraft's maintenance log. If your car won't start, would you reach for the jumper cables first or go straight for an ancient ritual? 42. Most major airlines have a chilling, unspoken corpse protocol for when a passenger passes away mid-flight. Because they cannot simply land a massive jet over the Atlantic Ocean, the crew is often instructed to move the deceased to a row with fewer people, buckle them in, and cover them with a blanket up to the neck. In some cases, they might even give them a pair of sunglasses to avoid panicking the other passengers. You could spend 6 hours of a red-eye flight sitting next to a sleeping person who is actually technically checked out of this life. 43. Global aviation authorities strictly enforce the two-person rule for the cockpit. If one pilot needs to use the restroom, a flight attendant is legally required to enter the cockpit and sit in the observer seat until the pilot returns. This ensures that the remaining pilot is never left alone with a locked door and full control of the aircraft. It creates a high-stakes, slightly awkward game of musical chairs every time a pilot drinks one too many cups of coffee at 30,000 feet. 44. For a long time, South Africa enforced a brutal, unabridged birth certificate rule that caught thousands of travelers off guard. Parents were legally forbidden from boarding a flight with their children unless they carried original, long-form birth certificates. A standard passport simply wasn't enough. Families from around the world were turned away at boarding gates, losing entire vacations because their paperwork was too short. It turned the airport check-in counter into a high-stakes legal hearing where a missing stamp could cancel a $10,000 safari in an instant. 45. British airports have a unique legal exemption for exactly one person on the planet, the reigning monarch. While the rest of the royal family, including the Prince of Wales, must carry a standard passport like any other citizen, the king or queen does not. Since British passports are technically issued in the name of the monarch, it would be legally redundant for them to carry a document giving themselves permission to travel. Imagine being the only person on Earth who can look a customs agent in the eye and say, "I am the document." 46. Virgin Atlantic's Wilbur and Orville salt and pepper shakers became the most stolen items in aviation history. Instead of banning the shakers or making them boring, the airline created a brilliant rule to print "stolen from Virgin Atlantic" on the bottom of every set. This turned a theft problem into a massive marketing campaign, effectively encouraging passengers to legally steal them as souvenirs. It is the only time an airline protocol has actually rewarded you for being a petty thief and taking home a piece of the cabin furniture. 47. Airlines have a very specific, professional protocol for dealing with the so-called Mile High Club. Flight attendants are generally trained not to knock or cause a scene while the activity is happening, but rather to wait outside the door and issue a firm warning or a "walk of shame" reminder upon exit. In more serious jurisdictions, this can lead to being met by police at the gate for interfering with flight crew duties or public indecency. Is the cramped, unhygienic airplane bathroom really worth a lifetime ban from your favorite airline? 48. Becoming a flight attendant for elite carriers like Emirates or Qatar Airways involves a functional reach rule that has nothing to do with your resume. Candidates are legally required to stand on their tiptoes and reach a height of 212 centimeters, about 7 feet, with their fingertips. If you are even a quarter-inch short, you are disqualified from the job, regardless of your experience or personality. It is a career path determined entirely by the length of your arms and the height of the safety equipment in the overhead bins. 49. JetBlue has a unique Bill of Rights rule that actually pays you for your misery if the technology fails. If your seatback television is non-functional on a long-haul flight, the airline is legally obligated to give you a $15 credit toward a future flight. It is one of the few instances where an airline admits their entertainment system is a paid part of the service and compensates you for the boredom. It turns a broken screen from a major annoyance into a tiny digital sorry gift from the corporate gods. All right, we have covered 49 points of absolute aviation madness, and only one remains. But before we reveal the final, most essential rule, it is time for the final verdict. Our award for the most nonsensical rule goes to the ban on skip lagging. It is the only industry on the planet where you can be sued or banned for using less of the service you already paid for. Punishing a passenger for getting off the plane early is peak corporate greed disguised as a mandatory regulation. Do you agree that this is the height of absurdity? Let us know in the comments. And now, our final number. 50. There is a long-standing, unwritten safety rule in the cockpit that the pilot and co-pilot must never eat the same meal. If the pilot chooses the chicken, the co-pilot is legally required to have the pasta or the fish. This is a redundant safety protocol designed to prevent both pilots from being incapacitated by food poisoning at the same time. If the shrimp was bad, at least one person stays conscious enough to land the plane. It is the ultimate don't put all your eggs in one basket life lesson, applied at 35,000 feet. From goat sacrifices to secret corpse protocols, the world of aviation is far weirder than the glossy travel brochures suggest. These rules might seem dumb, but they are the invisible gears keeping the global travel machine turning. When was the last time a simple airport regulation actually made your trip more difficult? Share your funniest travel horror story in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Safe travels!